everybody. Welcome back to our live Tuesday sessions. We had a big break there between different things, getting in some guest instructors, and we had a Q&A last week, so we're back at it again. So it's good to be back. So today we're going to cover this kind of really stemmed, Adrian, from your idea from our chat with Neil Ernest in terms of how he interacted with the backhand to the body and how people have their own little niches and their own certain styles of getting to hands. So that was kind of the motivation for tonight's session. So we're going to have a look at some things like entries into hands. Obviously, we start off at kicking range. How do you get to the hand range? So entries will be something that we look at, some counter options and things like that. So we hope it's a good session. As always, we have the live chat going. That's one of the good things about these live sessions. So get interactive, get your comments in the chat box, ask us questions, whatever we can help you with, we'll do our best. As always, like the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we'll get straight into it. We also have a very, very special guest for this Friday's series, so where we go through some highlights from previous champions who have done fantastic things in the sport of Taekwondo. So we have Master Thomas Barada, who's going to join us this Friday, so make sure you check that out. It's going to be a fantastic one. I'm sure everybody who's tuned in here knows who Master Barada is. So that's going to be a good one. Looking forward to it. We see the chat box is already lit. So get involved there. Get involved with the community. We're saying hello to people from lots of Irish people tonight, which is good.
Always.
So who else is in the chat box? Let us know where else you're tuning in from, and we'll get stuck into it. Okay, we're going to bow in, and then Adrian's going to lead us off with a warm-up to get everybody moving. Chariot, Kenyan, Taekwondo. Over to you, Adrian.
All right, folks, so we're going to start nice and easy. A little bit of footwork in this warm-up just to keep us getting moving, and I will introduce just a bit of stretching and animal-style movements just to get us moving a little bit. Really, the focus today is upper body, shoulders, and so we'll play with that stuff a little bit. But just to begin with, all I'd like to do, start off in your sparring stance, and you can always be moving a little bit back, forwards, left, right, and so on, but just getting ease into the stance to start with, and mix up your footwork. And again, just try to change the rhythm. So a little slower, a little faster. So taking it easy. Start with your preferred side as always, and feel free to change when you want to. It's just a little free movement to start with. And we will introduce some patterns in a second. And so what I'd like you to do is we're going to have double shift forward and a large slower step back. So forward, and easy back. Forward, easy back. We'll show on this side. So forward, and then easy back. Forward, nice and relaxed. Forward, easy back. So we just want to be springy, relaxed. Springy, relaxed. And work the other side, easy. Easy. So this time we're going to bring in a little bit of an angle, so we're going to have that V-cut, so we're coming forwards and to the side. And then we can change legs forwards and to the side. So you can bring the hand movement into it to help with the cut, or just bring the body as you go. So here, so that forward movement, make your angle. Forward movement, make your angle. Okay, this time we're going to be throwing from the back leg, but following a forward step and lift. Don't have to go particularly high, set lift, okay? So really it's just about driving the hip through. This way. So aggressive and lift. Right, and relax, so we're facing the front this time, just feet out and in. A little crossover. And 2 out, 2 in. And we're just bringing the hands into it as we go to normal jumping jacks. Okay, so actually, let's have 1, 2, each time you come to the middle. Out, 1, 2. Just to break up the rhythm a little bit. And now change, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left. Okay. Next one, scap jug push-ups. So we're going to go this way. Keep the arms completely locked. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Push shoulder blades apart. Just like this. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. Pushing the shoulder blades apart. Squeeze together. Push apart. 8 times. And relax. From there, we're going to go push-up position, but we're going to go to the elbows and back up. So here, elbow, elbow, up, up. And just rolling through in your own time. And 2 more. Nice. Sitting this way, feet to the front. Going to put the hands slightly behind your hips. Going to ease back into one shoulder. So looking to get a bit of a stretch in the front of the shoulder and the chest. And we're holding there for a few seconds. Other side. Easing right to left. So again, remember those hands are behind your hips. So as you go from right to left, you should just be experiencing a bit of a stretch on the front of the shoulder. And change this time. I want to bring the hands behind you. Okay, and we're going to crawl them back as far as you can. And then the goal is to lift chest and shoulders. Your elbows might feel this a little bit. That's okay. Lift the chest and ease into it.
We get that rounded shoulders with that, Adrian, don't we, with a lot of punching?
Yeah. Well, that's it. And you do want to work the opposite side of the arm as well. So in this case, we're going to get the upper back, threading the needle, reaching through, a little bit of rotation, and back up. It is one of those things in Taekwondo where we do all forward pushing. We don't balance it out an awful lot with the pulling or the counter rotational stuff. So that's a nice thing to include in your accessory work. So just going left and right here. And take your time, just reaching the back of the hand along, touch the shoulder to the floor and relax. And one last stretch before we go. One knee in front of the other, 1 foot on the ground. And we're going to just ease forward, hips towards the floor, trying to bring them close to the front heel. Knee can follow the baby toe. From there, I'm going to look to bring same side elbow to the floor. Can be inside, can be outside, that part doesn't really matter. And up. Let's try the other one. And again, we're not holding particularly long here. It's not really a flexibility session. Just trying to give ourselves a little bit of access to our range of motion. Squeeze and engage the hip, press it forward towards the heel. And then again, same side elbow to the floor. And of course, when you're doing this one, you can alternate with some nice stretches across the chest as well. And back out. Okay, so hopefully enough to get us started and talking with Richie about some of the first opportunities to bring these punches to bear and score some points.
All right. So yeah, we're going to start off, guys, with entries. So we have a couple of options on the entries. We have, you can use a side kick to initiate. You can use, you see some people actually, the back regions warm-ups. Hong Louis was actually very good at that. And we highlighted him and showcased his way of doing that in his session with us as well when we broke down his highlights and his best bits. We're going to also look at the backhand to the body, reverse steps, spare jabs, and a few other bits and pieces. So we'll start with some of these entries first off. So we'll start nice and easy, we'll build it up, and we'll try to get a bit more interaction with some people, get some questions on board if they have any problems and things like that. So let's start off first with using a side kick as an entry. Now, a lot of time people try to carry and overcommit on the side kick to try smash, but this is just to get you into contact. So obviously you have a little bit further distance out here, and you want to initiate how to get into that. So first off, you can just lift and shift, and you can come in. So we're just going to come in and come off the backhand. Usually you land it with the front hand and then the backhand. We're going direct with the backhand first, okay? So just 1, 2, and reverse, and reset. Okay, when you land, try to get to the outside. So as I lift my front leg, there we go, waiting for the camera to kick back. So you're going to go 1 and slightly land to the outside to open up the body position. So we're just going to use that as our first entry. Okay, ready? Go. Good. So you can almost use this with the toes up. We've spoken about this previously, and that will help you to open out that shoulder here. Make sure this hand is up. Okay, quite important on this entry. So very basic one. You can do that a few times on each side. Okay. The next one that we can have is a type of blitz, as you can throw this. So first off, we can go directly from static. So you're on the toes. From here, you just lean the weight onto your front leg. As you do so, you'll turn your front foot. So if you're like me and you lead off side facing, okay, as you go here, you'll adjust the front foot, which is an important point. As you do that, the body will lean forward and you'll extend through the front hand. Okay, just do a few of these. And you can also add in with a test step. We've done that before in a few sessions. If you know that, add that in. So that's another option that we have. Okay, you can do a blitz in many different ways. You can do it like that with like a hopping style. You also can have like a sprinting style where you literally sprint through. Another option as well. Again, turning that front foot. That's a big principle for a lot of this stuff. You just carry through. Again, your footwork and your rhythm here on the outside is important. Just breaking that rhythm up is an important point. All right, so there's 2 entries, 2 variations of one. Okay, another one that we can have is what's called the spare jab. So a lot of, and this actually comes from light contact continuous kickboxing. They do this a lot. Distance is slightly closer. They'll use this as an entry to get into contact. The first one isn't about a big score, it's to get you into contact. It's about what you do next is important. But just let's practice the entry. Here. Just into contact. So you're just putting all your weight, and just wait for the camera to, we're having slow internet day today. So as we're going, just try to commit your weight forward. Here, you're not jumping up, you're lunging in slightly. Okay, sometimes this will be a counter shot, sometimes it'll be an initiation shot. All right, so that's another option that we have. Another one is a reverse step. Okay, Adrian's going to show us a variation of this later on. But one way we can do it is like an old school karate move, is you go 1, 2, with the opposite leg, opposite hand. To us, it's something that's kind of strange. And when you do it first, it'll feel weird. I'll do that a little bit of an angle. here. And it's like, whoa, what's happening? And everybody is not used to that. But in real time, it's one left with right, right with left.
Give that one another go, Richie. The camera, I think, froze on that
there
one.
we go. Yeah. So we're just lunging with the backhand as we step with the front leg. So it's 1, 2. So the front leg gets closer as you step, front leg closer, and then you just switch the step. Okay? Very. If you watch point karate, even in the Olympic style karate that they do as well, you'll see this come up time and time again. Is our regular style, left with left, right with right, and here they do it the opposite way. So we go up, and they're reversing the hands. Okay? If you're not used to this, it'll feel weird, but it's also weird for your opponent. Another way to enter, okay? And what you'll see, what I meant to, what Adrian's going to show us later as well, by the way, is they will initiate often to the body. Body, head. Okay? So that's usually how you can as an option as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of some basic entries. Some a little bit more advanced for people that may be comfortable with the ones already that we did. And I think, Adrian, what are we going to work on next on your side?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about getting the backhand in as a direct counter in particular. And we'll talk about a few different ways that we can get this in. And let's just anchor it back onto our principles. We were talking about blending or contrasting. So we're thinking in terms of, look, the backhand is a straight shot. No matter what way we look at it, all of your punches basically are following a straight path to the target, which means very often we're looking to counter a circular shot. So maybe a turning kick coming slightly round this way, maybe a banded Dollyo taggy, something like this. And that's the first part. So very, very simply, just on that level, all we'd be talking about is Bob here is throwing his round shot. And all we really need to do is bring the front foot forward as we bring the backhand in. That's almost too simple to talk about as a thing to train on its own, because in the end, without the person actually throwing the shot, it's just a step through, and we're looking at here, or to the body, and there's nothing much to it. So the concept is, if the shot is round and your timing is good, there's nothing that stops you applying that direct shot through the center. So that's where we want to start. But let's make it a bit more interesting, and let's look at the side kick. And we want to look at 3, 4, 5 different ways to deal with the side kick, or what looks like a side kick, with the backhand as a direct counter. So the first thing is, let's have a look at the side kick. And if I'm kicking off my right leg, my knee lifts up, and maybe I get into that position. Okay, so I have my foot between me and my opponent. It's lifting, while I'm a little bit further away. What are we going to deal with this, and how do we? It's not the ideal one. Okay, so as my opponent is presenting this kind of target, there is an opportunity. So I want to look at my front hand. So my front hand is out in front of my body. And what I want to do is make sure that my front hand connects with about the ankle of the foot as it comes up. So as I'm stepping forwards, I'm just letting this front hand drop. I'm bringing my own body weight down. So I'm bringing the weight onto the ankle and stopping it from coming up. I want to meet the ankle while it's about here. So as the ankle is on the way up, I want to interrupt its path with my front hand and bring my back hand through. So I just have my hand floating in front of me here. I'm inviting the shot. Maybe I'm backing away. And as the shot comes in, I'm just shifting forwards to trap it with my front hand. And I'm coming in my backhand. And this will be to the head, where if my opponent has left leg forward and I have left leg forward, this would probably be to the head. I might have the option of going to the body if we both have open facing. We'll come back on that again. But the idea is, I'm playing on distance, I'm inviting the shot, and as they're looking to push in, just that act of dropping my body, bringing my hand down, traps the ankle and lets me through. So I need to commit to it so that I can come in. It feels weird that this hand isn't doing something like protecting the chin, but this hand is the fence. It's changing and moderating the distance, and then I just drop it here to check the body or to check the ankle, and in I go. So that can give me a way to go directly through. Next, we want to look at your opponent giving you a little bit of a clue. So their side kick comes up a little bit like this. So their toes are directly in front of my hip, okay? So in that case, or maybe it's even more pronounced and it comes up like this where the shin is visible. In that case, we don't want to put the hand out. What we want to do is bring the hand closer to the body and step in. and trap the shin against the body here. So I'm using my own arm as a buffer. So it starts out from my body a little bit and absorbs into the body as I step in. So we're watching and there's some movement and I step and I hit. So the idea is I'm leaving my shoulder forward to trap the shin, and then I adjust my foot to make my contact. So as I do this, ideally it's in the one go and it's through. So I'm stepping in, absorbing the shot and reaching through. And that's what I'm thinking about with a direct one. So we'll come into jamming more later, but that's another one. Now let's have a look at some options if particularly the leg is long, okay? And what happens is if the person doesn't have much of a bend in their knee on the way forward, and then they tend to kick with the leg a little long, it gives us the option of opening the door and catching it right behind the heel or right across the instep as they're kicking out. So I'll have a look towards Bob so you can see. So where the chamber is something like this, it's a little bit more extended. I can come back just onto the edge of that range and leave an open target on my hip. And so by closing the door, it's letting me in with the backhand. So I have an opening, and in this case, the person who's kicking, they have the opposite leg in front. So I have my left, they have their right. So the heel is on this side of my body. So I'm meeting the heel, or just behind the heel with my arm, as I move back slightly and draw it across my body here, and then I can punch. I can as well, if my timing is good, come forward. So I'm having my hand here to deflect the leg. I make a little bit of an angle forward and then I go. So I can do this going forwards in the one motion here, or I can do it while soaking the leg up and going back, bringing them along the front of my body so I can reach that backhand in here. So here, boom, and back in. And the same thing works on the other side. So on the opposite side, where I want to go this way, I can actually leave my body open like this, leaving a space under the hand, which lets me have this kind of movement. And if the foot's this way, okay, and the toes are kind of in front of the hip, I can also just give it a little shovel as I step forwards and go directly in. But normally speaking, we'll want to make a little bit of a shift and go in. Only if the toes are out of the way and you can bring them around the other side of your body would you go directly. So how do you see all of this? This comes back to our constraints, our chunking. So you need to practice with different people who bring up their side kicks in different ways. And you need to see it, feel it over and over and over again so you start to see the signs. You'll need to watch an opponent's side kick 3 or 4 times before you get a feel around how they lift it. Now, you can cheat, and how you do that is you go and watch video of your opponent before you get to the ring. And you already know what way they're going to lift their side kick. So you maybe only have to watch it once or twice. But if they're new to you, you've never seen them before, it even feels different when they're in front of you as opposed to on the video. But you might see this kind of a movement. It's like, oh, okay, I have a shin there. I can step onto the shin and go through. I can bring it directly. Or I feel like the foot doesn't come up back. It comes up as they go forward. Okay, I can have my front hand out and I can attempt to go through that. So your choice of the punch to use against a side kick depends on the side kick in front of you and your opponent's rhythm. But if you watch a few of them, you should get a sense of those. Principles are very, very simple though. When the leg is the same, okay, we are going to end up usually on that open side. So we would like to punch directly. We don't want to have a movement and then a punch because it gives them time to counter what we're doing. If it's the opposite leg in front, we can be a little bit more absorbed because we're going to end up in their blind side. It can be a 2-part movement, 1 and 2. We'd always, if we could choose, we'd always counter directly because it takes out the opportunity for you to get hit by your opponent. So Richie, where would you like to go next?
Yeah, super. And just to touch on, to add on with some of the great points that Adrian made as well,
Yeah.
I think the most common mistake I see with people on that reverse punch is they actually hold their ground and then they end up getting hit with the side kick or whatever it is.
Yeah, okay.
Like you have to think of the distance coming together here. So as your opponent is coming in, you also need to make a step in. So it's that idea of like car crash kind of an idea, yeah, of two things coming together. A lot of time people will just hold their ground and they'll try reach without moving. And then they'll end up getting the long side kick. And that's where you see the pictures of people getting absolutely creamed with a side kick like that. So you also have to step into that range and you almost meet in the middle.
Cool.
Okay, so will we look at some counters from there, Adrian?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So this is kind of one that I competition, but it's just a cool one to have in the back pocket, really. So it's basically a defensive back fist. So actually do it in front. So what I like to do here is kind of almost bring the hand in this type of a motion, and it comes down and a back fist just on, usually on the side of the helmet. Okay, but it's a good one on the defensive, but you got to know what's next. So here's how it looks, and we go from there. One. Okay, and it's just a nice jumping away back fist. It's a good one against somebody who's an oncoming opponent, but you got to think of what's next. Especially if it's somebody in the, like I used to do this in like plus 85 kilos. So if I did this, no matter where I was in the ring, I was very close to the edge. So you have to be aware of what comes next. But it's a nice rhythm of it, because a lot of time you're coming under as you're coming back, and then you're jumping from here and down. So it's a nice one in terms of the distance you get. So it's one. But then you got to think of what's next. A lot of time, it'll be a nice position, nice natural setup for a back kick. So you can almost go 1, 2. But then again, you got to think of what's next of pulling off left or right. So that's very important on that one. So I'll just show you through the technique again. I'm coming under, under, under. My weight comes back. As I come under, my legs flip back behind me. So kind of like an old grandfather clock. I don't know if you call them in other countries, but in Ireland, people will get it anyway. It's your legs will come back under you. Here. Okay, so it's like a jumping away back fist. So you go 1, set your feet, switch back kick, for example, and then you're coming out this way or the other way. All right, just play around with that. So it's under, it's under. So usually you're giving them the shot. I slightly line in, or lean out, and I give them this area. And then from here, it's a deception. So that's what they think they see, but I'm actually back here because I'm leaning in. From the side, like this. So you're with your hand position and leaning. So if I slightly lean in, I'm overdoing it for you guys to see, but if I was doing it in sparring, I would do it like this. Slightly over my center of gravity, and then from here I drift back, and then you can catch them. So you got to get that hip backwards. Okay, and then after you land, switch back kick, and you've got to move left or right. Be ready to try come back to the center of the ring. So that's just one option. Nice fun one on the counter. You see that in point kickboxing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a nice counter as well, even to a blitz. So, you know, where the person has reached the end of their initial movement, they've just kind of run out of steam a little bit. And particularly if they have a hopping blitz.
Exactly. If they're kind of going this one, they're kind of as you said, they're like at the end of their tether almost and out of steam. It's a nice one to catch them on the edge of it. Boom. That's a nice one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. So do you want to go another counters after that? I think maybe we can have a look at the counter coming through. So that's more of the defensive back fist. You can also have the the attacking back fist almost, of where you go through the target. So this one is kind of like if somebody's using the side kick again, Adrian covered using the backhand. You can also use the front hand. But this one is a great one if my opponent is mirrored. So this way, my opponent is attacking me like this, and I'm on this side. So you'll be coming around the back of them. So you'll come around here with the back fist. You'll come around to the side of their body and open up the side kick. So imagine this is my opponent. Obviously, I'm going to go behind the bag, but you get what I mean. So if you time it right, get the right rhythm, you can come through and then flick your leg around to the opposite side of them. So it's a nice little one coming around the back. So they're going to be shooting a side kick this way. I come around the back of the side kick, and then I got to pull my hips around, which is important. So you're pulling your hips around, and if you can sneak in that turning kick, it's very hard for them to catch it. So what does it look like? They're here trying to hit the side kick. You come around the back of them. You end up here, and then you shoot turning kick in here to this small little area. So it's just another option. So you have the defensive option and the attacking option.
Cool.
Of course, these would be much cooler to show if we had live opponents, but maybe we can do that someday.
Definitely. Looking forward.
All right, we hand over to you, Adrian, for some of the other ones.
All right, let's have a look at an attacking option again. So we'll take that. Again, this particular technique, it's a backhand blitz, and it starts the body, as you kind of alluded to earlier. And this kind of comes from very much the karate and points kickboxing style of things. In our ITF, it's been used quite a bit by Master Trickery students, and Alamin Ramadan would be one of the guys who kind of definitely gave us some hints and tips and tricks on it recently enough. But the concept is unusual, okay? So just to illustrate a couple of things, actually we'll do a couple towards the camera. So one of the first things, it initiates with the footwork, but we're going to be leaning heavily on that front leg as we drive through and getting the body quite low. We are reaching through the backhand here. This hand is going to end up being quite high. So this is going just onto the hip. So I'm going very low, 1, 2. So the first hand is coming through to contact the hip. And what that kind of does is traps the front leg coming up. So if Bob here was looking to throw a side kick, in much the same way as I might have blocked it with my front hand and come forward with my backhand, this is kind of trapping it from coming up into a scoring position as I go through. So what I'm looking for is that idea that as I'm moving, 1, 2, we're getting in here. So it should connect as a very, very quick, one after the other. And so it is very definitely a back fist in this case. We have to create space for it, okay, as we go through. And the other thing with it is we are looking at that hopping blitz primarily. So we're not going to go and let the legs pass so much. We're going to really commit on getting here in the first go. So that the pulling footwork, particularly on the circle, so we might be looking circle, 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 and get through. It's a tie. We're looking to connect with that hip, cover off the side kick, maybe make that contact to the head. But what it does let us do is once we've closed that distance, you know, and we're in here, we're here, boom, we can quickly find an angle onto a turning kick because when you land, you're actually quite balanced. So sometimes when we go with the higher blitz, or I come this way, my body is off to the side a little bit. Whereas in this case, I've gotten around that and I'm quite close, so I can find an angle for myself and make a nice shot. So it's also quite nice when you're both of the opposite legs. So if you're left-legged against your opponent's right or vice versa, it's quite nice because their side kick is coming here and your movement should be taking you to the blind side, to the blind side of that side kick. So you want to be putting yourself just out of the line of that front leg and making it difficult for them to chase you. So if your movement has been this way for a while and then you cut back, go, that's quite nice. Or if you've been turning and you have a quick cut and go, it's a really nice way to do that as well. Also when the person overextends, so they're following, they go a little bit too long and you can arrive in there very quickly. So really, really nice alternative on the normal blitz going directly to the head. So, yep, Richie, we got you again.
Yeah, really good. You hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. So we might look at a little bit of pulling so next. So kind of linking all of those together really in the last maybe couple that we did. So it's again using your partner's forward momentum and very similar. So you can actually link it with Adrian's last one. So it works really well. So I show it to you with the regular blitz. And of course you can use the one that Adrian just demonstrated as well. So you can pull. So you can push first with your footwork. Then you can pull and push again. So you're drawing them into a trap. Now, the most important thing about this is keeping your feet under you and balanced. And you don't want to have to be able to make a big effort to shift the weight. What do I mean? So you don't want to be going like this and then a big effort to shift the weight back. Same on the reverse. It shouldn't be a big effort. So you should be able to push, pull, and keep 50-50 on your weight quite easily. So what we're looking to do here is pull, pull, and then go. Yeah? So maybe we'll do that with 2 or 3 steps back. 1, 2, 3, and then send the weight forwards again. So you're here, you're moving. So it's quickly transitioning the weight from defense to attack. And that's quite important. So we call this pulling. So if you ever talk here on our Fight Chat Fridays of push, pull, is usually what we mean. So you pull your opponent in, and then you push back. You push back. So it's a nice little one. And of course, you can do it with Adrian's one as well. You can pull, and then you can shoot. Yeah, so it's a nice little option to be able to do. But you must be able to carry your feet with you and have them set. It's not a big transition of your weight. You should have 50-50 and on balance.
Cool. A few quick fire ones then, and we'll talk our way through them. So the next one that we have is just jamming, and it's linked to that push and pull, and again to our initial concept of contrast. So when your opponent is looking to bring up a kick that travels, so we're kind of in this position, and you see them maybe shortening, and they want to go this way, or just a long kick, particularly with a big pullback, it offers us the opportunity to jam. And jamming just means we're going to reduce the effective distance that kick gets. We're going to give a safe target, usually an arm, okay, usually between the elbow and the shoulder. So it's a non-scoring target, and all we're looking to do is we're inviting them to make that big kick. Maybe we're coming back here and we're opening it out. Maybe we're pulling a little bit to the side as we go, or just, making some space. And the idea is that they're going to make that longer shifting kick, bringing up that front leg and make a pumping action, pulling the knee back. And it gives us just an opportunity to step in and cover. So we can cover here, cover a lot of the body, cover here if we're confident that the kick is going to be to the body, okay? And we're usually dropping our body weight as well, because even if we get this a little bit wrong, there's probably a bit of impact coming. So we need to get our body weight down, get our center of gravity low, and get our forward momentum. Again, where this goes terribly wrong is if you don't move forward and meet your opponent. If they're coming forward from here to here, from here to here, we want to meet them here while the leg is still in this position. Usually what will happen is they'll move this way. Very important to make sure that we're scoring. There's an intent to get a technique in there. So if I just do this and do nothing, it's pushing, okay? So it's very important that as I go forward, that the intent is to get the punch in there, okay? But it's the principle and the philosophy of it that's the same. The other thing we can do, which is very similar to jamming, is check, okay? So what we're thinking about here, checking or clashing, okay, is how we would deal with the front leg by just interacting with it, okay? So what we want to do is, if we're coming forward and your partner is kicking towards you, I might just float my leg out and try and have my leg just over it as they're coming up. So if they take any kind of a step in, or if their leg lifts this way, all I want to do is just put my foot out directly, be a little bit over their own foot, and two things should happen. First, it should spoil their kick. And that's really important. I don't want them getting a good kick off, okay? The second thing that we'll do is, because if you try this yourself, get a partner to hit your leg on the way up, like the strength goes completely out of your hip. It's very hard to maintain any upward lift or pressure. So the second you hit something, your leg drops. And what happens is, because my leg was on top of that, my leg goes boom, and I land in a good position to bring my hands to bear. And that's what I want to do. You'll often see as well, and we would talk about where this originated, and we keep going back to Martin Gudea, but the idea of using this and absorbing the kick as well by getting tall and using the front leg to stop it and then bring us back into the hands as well. Depending on the momentum of the kick, you can almost use it to lift you and get back over the top into the kick. So we've often done this as well. I mean, a really interesting one to watch, actually, if you go back to, give me the year, Richie, I think 2013, maybe European Championships in Sweden, Dylan Fitzgibbon against Ludwig Sela in the final.
Yeah, final of that one, yeah.
Okay, so what you'll see is one very tall guy, one not so tall guy, left against right-legged fighter, and left-legged fighter, Dylan, all he's doing is basically looking for this spot on the backside of the person's hip to put his toe there. Just that shot. Lift up, tap, and all that happens is this big leg is looking to come up and do damage, and all it is no, I'll just touch your hip on the way up, and your leg comes back down. And every now and again, the person who's lifting the big leg is going to make a little mistake. All they're going to do is they're going to land off balance a little bit. And it just means then the other person, yeah, well, I get my chance to go in and get my score. You only have to do that once or twice. So we're looking at jamming as a way to neutralize the kicking ability of your opponent by manipulating distance. Shorten the distance on them, make it so that they can't execute the kick. And if you can do it in a sudden way so that their leg gets stopped on the way up, it generally hands you an advantage in coming to hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And two things that I want to just almost piggyback off from Adrian, what he said there is first one in terms of the lift. When you're doing that lift, I almost kind of like to explain it to people, it's like a side rising kick where your leg is bent. So I kind of like do it like this. So it's like as if you're doing a leg swing when you're warming up.
Yeah.
But your leg is bent. And just by having that position, you have a lot of options from there, and your body is tall. If you need to, you can drift back to defend, to get safe. If you need to, you can go forward and switch the feet. And so that is one useful one of just kind of using that. Always, like I always say to my students, always have your sole of your foot facing forwards, and you can see why that's important, because Adrian just went through lots of ways that you can get caught if you don't have a correct foot position. One thing on the foot position is if somebody's hand position, if you are jamming all the time and you're against somebody who's quite leggy, be aware of doing it time and time and time again. If you're with, so this is just something to be aware of. And also on the flip side, then if somebody's doing it to you. I actually got this, Adrian actually pointed this out to me in Dutch Open in 2014 when I was fighting somebody quite leggy from Scotland. And Adrian was coaching me at the time, and he said, just get your big toe over his glove. And what that does is when they try to jam, if you can get your big toe over their glove, very similar to what he was saying with the big toe here, is now trapped by my own sidekick. So then it's very hard for him to come in and use his front hand to get rid of my leg. If you're very flexible, it allows you then to come up above and score 3 points with that as well. So if you can use that kind of in conjunction with that half bent leg side rising kick, you can come over the glove with the toe, then you can come to the head and get the 3 points as well if you're flexible enough. So you can almost go one and then up to the head, get the extra add-on for 3 points, because this hand is trapped. So all of this area here is open. So that's something then that you can do on the flip side of that. If somebody is jamming you consistently, if you can actually jam their front hand and you have the flexibility to come back over the top, it's a very useful one.
Yeah, it's the same kind of principle as if you're punching across the person's shoulder in both on open side facing. So if my hand is forward here and you're punching this way across, it traps my hand. I can't get back to where you are because your hand is over mine and it's coming true to my center line. So you want to dominate that path to the center line. And once, as you said in your example there, once you take that toe over that front glove, it's very hard for them to stop. Like that's trapping their own leg. It's very hard for them to interact. So it's something that's nice.
If somebody has it like here.
Yeah,
you can get your foot over the glove on this side. All you got to do is just get your big toe above it, traps the hand, and then you can shoot to the head if you have that ability to do so. Yeah,
for sure. So we're starting to get one or two little questions in. So we might just answer one or two of those before we jump on to any of the tail end ones. So let's have a look at one here from Gavin, and is just looking on a kind of a general principles kind of thing. Should we use a punch or punches after executing a kicking technique, even when there was no contact, for safe retreat or to maximize scoring?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It really is. It ends type again. It really does, for me, depend on the distance and the situation. If you're on the corner of the ring, are you in the center of the ring? Are you overextending? So for me, using your front leg, you should be either trying to score, take back space, or use it as an entry. Generally, they're the three options that I would use my front leg. I'm either going directly to score with it or set up a score. So I might use kind of like the pendulum of kick, drop, kick. I'm trying to take back space and threaten them. So a good, honest threat to push back your opponent because you might be pushed towards the edge. So taking back space. And then the third way would be like an entry to set up the hands or something like that. But generally, I wouldn't do it if I kick and I miss. If I'm not in it, I wouldn't just go to hands. It needs to be a correct reason for me to go to hands.
I do think there's something to be said for when you're training. If you make a defensive counter, or you're kicking on the way back, if your brain is thinking about getting to hands immediately afterwards, it does help in finessing your footwork, so you don't end up with a poor body position. It's a nice thing to keep front of mind. And so we'll often introduce constraints where we are looking for people to connect feet to hands. So something where, for example, you can only score with hands if it follows feet, or only score with feet if it follows hands, that kind of connection. And it's only because most people will compartmentalize. So most people in their training will get reasonably good at, they take a particular stance, a particular guard when they want to kick, and then they kick. And then they change mindset guards, the foot position when they want to focus on their hands. And that becomes very readable. and the connecting and flowing from one to the other is really important. So we can use our constrained spars and force people, in order to get scores, to link the two, and it has value. And then, of course, the game that will be played, and it exposes what Richie says there, is once you know the person has to come to hands to get a score, you can drift back a little extra far off that front leg and draw them onto a defensive shot. So yeah, you don't want to always commit. It's not where you want to be.
I think though, that's a great point. It's probably like, if you had to pick, you probably would be better off on the defensive side, because if somebody's coming at you and you use your leg to defend or to counter, for example, chances are you're going to be probably in hands range next.
Yeah.
And as you said, with the balance there is so important. It's a good way to make sure you're on balance. Even if you don't go to hands, you have the ability then to move left and right, which is very, very important.
So again, from Master Murphy and Miss Murphy. So what advice, please, when coaching students, would you encourage them learning a blitz to focus only on their favorite side? And I think that's a particularly interesting one when we talk about the blitz, because we've just had two guests on our Fight Chat Fridays who pretty much only initiated with hands on one side. So if you looked at, these are European and world champions, Neil Ernest, Hong Louis, top level fighters. And not only that, acknowledged by many people world over as people they would really enjoy watching spar. So they're really engaging and excited, talented fighters, and who love to fight. But they have one leg in front for a particular half of their game and the other leg in front for the other half of their game. You can still do that. It's absolutely fine. I will tend to blitz only off my left. That's one of those things. It's not necessarily a detriment. You want to the blitz is a confidence shot. And especially when you're learning it, you really want to learn it on a side that's going to make you more confident. That's going to reduce all those inhibitions to getting in there and getting the score. And if that means that you have to change legs to set it up, then I think, almost so be it. Because one of the things that's really important when you're learning is you want to experience success. You want your successes to be 55%, or better, so that you're developing that association with, no, I can do this well, I can be effective, I can get the score. Because if there's any doubt in your mind when you throw that blitz about actually landing it, you'll probably compromise the technique yourself. So you want to set it up with the best chance of success, initially, particularly when you're learning it. You might decide to then later challenge yourself by scoring a blitz on your offside, or introduce it into your constrained spars where someone's very effective with it, that they have to change legs each time they score to balance out the match between two people. So that, hey, I got the first score. Now you have to go on your right side. We know it's not your favorite. And I have to go on my right side until I can get a score, which lets the other person back into the game. So we can adjust it that way. But, Richie, your thoughts or anything extra on that one?
I have to agree. The biggest challenge for me when I started to blitz first was actually the mental block of throwing the shot and shooting with the blitz. And it's just a thing of confidence, as you said. For me, my thoughts on this in terms of a pure sports perspective in sparring, I would like to lead off my favorite leg, and then I would build my game around that. So it doesn't mean I just lead off one leg, but my spinning shots would be a lot come off my right leg then, for example, and I would set things up that way. So I don't think it's a good idea to have all your shots on one leg and then just one shot on one side. I think that for people that are clever and who you might compete against often, it'll be a telltale sign at the high level. Now, as I said, Hong and Neil, superb guys who were able to do it really well. But personally, I believe that you should be able to take it off one side, and then all my shots are built around that stance. So my spinning shots then would work off what's called my weaker leg, and vice versa. So I would build my game around a particular stance, and I think that's just a better use of time in terms of your strengths or then your strengths. And you're not 50% and 50%, although that's a massive thing to have if you have it. I think it's a much better use of time to build a very good solid base on one particular stance, and then all your shots come from that. Maybe even if you for example, I'm left-handed, but if I led off my right leg, then I should be throwing my blitz off that right hand then as well. And that's my personal belief. Maybe people don't agree with that, but that's just the way I think is the best approach.
Definitely makes it easier. It definitely makes it easier. I mean, I'd be typically right-legged, And if I want to blitz off my left, I have to work that into my sparring style. So it has to follow a back leg. It has to follow a back leg turning kick. It has to follow, a change of stance for whatever reason. For me, very often, it'll be going laterally and coming back in with the other leg or something. But it's also a reason why, for me, it would be much harder for me to score that than if I did everything right-sided. But I think what's really important in that, in what you were saying, is you have to build your repertoire of shots around your preferred leg and then adapt from there. So most people will do quite well if they have a solid side kick, turning kick from the back leg or front leg and punches. And like, you change legs, all you need is a good shot to get you back to your preferred leg again, and whatever works that way.
And it's important to distinguish as well that we don't mean like you just have one leg. Yeah, it's not where you just go on your favorite leg all day long. It's like a lot of my students, for example, they might be right-legged, but they want to lead off their left. And that's perfectly fine. I would like to encourage them then to build their shots and their shot selection and their repertoire and their skills, whatever, around that stance then.
There's actually, whatever you're most comfortable with. Before we go into the next question, there's something to be said for that. So for me, if I only have to develop a good side kick on my front leg, for example, and I use my off leg for that, then I've got my good leg for all the other shots. So there's something to be said for that as well. But, that's always going to be an argument. So the questions are rolling from Mitchelstown. So we have, would the same advice or logic apply to combos and for even average students, not top level guys? So do you want to jump into that one first?
My thoughts on combination training is it's not as effective as people think, and I almost slayed it just to get a bit of.
Master De Silva, if you're watching or listening to this, just block your ears for a moment. It'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody's following along, like the blogs we're doing on TKD Coach Academy.com over the last few weeks and stuff, I'm always putting out like clickbaity titles to kind of almost get attention towards this stuff, because it's something that I believe people do because this looks good on Instagram, whatever. Anyway, don't let me get started on that stuff. But basically, combination training for me is about the things we spoke about earlier: the balance, the flow of shots, the natural rhythm of shots. I'm not a believer of actually training combinations. I think that the combinations come from what's called perception, action, coupling of what's happening in the ring. So I see a shot. I see that Adrian's body is open. So I go for a turning kick, which leads me into hands, which leads me into this. Of course, you're going to have favorite shots, which you kind of like go with, and then they will bring you natural ways because it's what you do all the time. And we're just almost like creatures of habit that way. But I'm not a big fan of like training combos in the traditional way of like, let's do combination drills on the pad and repeat and repeat and repeat, because personally the reason for that is based on the research and the skill acquisition stuff that I've put a lot of time into researching, has come from my own personal experience, that we used to put a lot of hours into this type of training to go away internationally, and then we never see it come up. And the reason why these things wouldn't come to the fore in real life stuff and the combinations is you're training, one, a very specific and certain scenario, and two, you need a perception to act on that. So I need to see visually, okay, Adrian is too close here now, I need to adjust, or his left leg is in front, whatever. So you need the body type to interact, and that's why I'm a real big believer in training with two people who have their own objective. And that's what comes into our constraint-led approach and stuff like that. So yeah, long answer, but to answer your question, combination-wise, I like to do it for natural flow of finding shots that flow well together, and also just to set balance and for cardio purposes. Otherwise, I don't do it for the combo purposes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to make a slightly long answer, just a touch longer, I don't disagree with anything that Richie was saying. I do very much the same thing. But if we keep the concept of what is a combination, it's just linking techniques together. It's not that we don't train combinations. It's that we don't invent combinations is maybe the thinking there. So I do ask students to link two kicks together to get a score. I do ask them to think beyond the first intention. So what's my first kick to do? It's to create space. It's to create movement. It's to invite something from my opponent. It's to score. And so that initiates, okay, what follows it? What's natural? What's next? But that all changes if my opponent goes this way. And what will interrupt most pad drills is your opponent moving forward or moving to the left or right. As long as they only go backwards, every combination ever invented probably works. If they stand still, even better. But, you know, typically people do unexpected things. So they throw an awkward back kick and hit you in the leg, just like the Eddie Dillon clip that got put up there recently.
Yeah. Shout out to Giles.
Shout out to Giles for featuring that one. But look, in the end, there's no harm in building the ideas of combinations for students and letting them see what kinds of techniques might connect to others. But that we do have to see it in, you know, as it develops in scenarios. And again, come back to the constraints thing over and over again. We do need to simplify the fight until what we're perceiving is manageable and it's not sensory overload. And that depends on the level of the competitor. And once we've simplified it enough that they can read the cues and improvise solutions, then we're in a good place. And I think that's what we want to do.
Like, I'll give you a very quick example for the people who are listening, and for Master Murphy, who asked that good question. Like, instead of me actually training combos on the pads where, right, guys, we have to do this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, in sequence, in flow, this leg, that leg, whatever. What I will actually do is we will work off a specific technique. We'll say, okay, an entry shot might be one we worked on today, like a front leg side kick as an entry. And now you have to put 2 or 3 shots of your own. And whichever student can come up with a combination, their own creative style of landing 2 shots at 2 separate occasions, wins the contest. And that's how I do it, because then the distance is correct, the decision making is correct. And if anybody watched our top 10 skills that me and Adrian did, like, technique itself was like down around the 10 mark. There's lots of stuff way above that in terms of like your decision making, your distance, your timing, and they're all the things that you have to read to put the techniques and the combinations into play.
For sure.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't realize, this is what we're kind of passionate about more so than anything else.
Maybe. So folks, again, just before we do finish up for tonight, if there are any questions that are jumping forwards to the front of the brain and you want to unload them, now is a really good time to do that. And again, huge thank you for anyone who's interacted with us in the chat. That really does help make these sessions a whole lot more interesting for everybody involved. It's great to be able to, you know, specifically go to the point of the itch or the scratch that's bothering someone or sitting with someone at a particular point in time. It really does help us as well to shape our thinking and the where to next. Richie, was there anything on our list of things we wanted to look at? So one of the questions that was there actually coming out of the last couple of Fight Chat Fridays was where did the jumping punch go to? So do we have anywhere where that is still useful?
Yeah, I think actually we have good at natural segues, but Master Barada's students actually use it very well, especially Nej and a few guys like that throughout the years use it well to counter a blitz. So it can be used, and one of the reasons, it's actually similar to the one that I did earlier with the jump away back fist. One of the reasons for that is because you're stuck in half facing, but why the jumping punch is good on the defensive sometimes is it can buy you an angle. We've seen actually a clip with Adrian's student Louise, who did this really well, but in a few Fight Chat Fridays ago. But it also straightens up the body, because it straightens up the body for you to be able to get both punches involved as you jump back, which can be very, very useful as well. Of course, you can do. I think it can be very useful in like the pocket as well. We say in the very close range in ITF. So if we're in very close, I think if you can get off and use it to buy yourself an angle, it can also be a very effective way to use that. I see a question there from Connor. Is it allowed to hit a hard hook punch when you pivot? Yeah, so shout out to Connor. Hi, Connor. So as you step through, we have this pivot step that we do a lot to defend the blitz, another option. So usually, like, I wouldn't call this a hook per se, because for me, it's your turning, and it's actually the punch is this, but it's my body that makes it look like a hook. The twist of the body, because my opponent wants this. So I'm going to be standing here side facing most off, half facing, whatever. They're trying to come on to me directly, and I'm just taking my head off that line by removing my back leg from the line. And what that does is, as they shoot through, I'm using my front hand. It's kind of like the matador kind of an idea, as you kind of like take it out of the way. So with the raging bull, so it's the same idea, you step along. So I wouldn't consider it a hard hook, because if you do it as like a hard hook, you actually won't catch them because they'll go through very quickly. Instead, it's almost like a guide along, and you're using their momentum to catch them. So as you're coming off, it's here, boom. And if you can lean the body slightly, it's a nice one. Just here, and a lot of time that air, so I'll let it reset. So it just goes one, and it's a nice one then to set up the back leg, Dollyo, if they're on that particular side.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, because even on that one, maybe we're talking about the idea of the trains on the track coming together. Like Mr. King, one of the coaches in our national team as well, was quite fond, and he's particularly accurate with it. But of countering that blitz, if it's quite a tall one, punishing the person for being a little tall in their blitz by basically just locking the arm out and putting the shoulder through it and letting them walk onto it. And when he introduced it to a few people in training, there was a few very unhappy people with stiff necks. But if you're a little tall in your blitz, if you're not coming in, we'll say with the forehead stacked or the neck stacked, and you're a bit tall or your chin is up as you come in, oh my gosh, is that an absolute make your drive home a bit rough. You're picking up the paracetamol on the way home.
The guys in the medieval times, and the horses, and they had to joust, and they hit the guy off the horse. It's like that. It's just like boom, it just takes you right off your feet. There's actually a great picture of Mr. King landing that on Matt Cadle as well, and it actually looks like that. The head has just gone completely back.
It's a very unfortunate position to be in, but again, it's just looking at different ways of exploring the punches, and like that. Very often it's about finding the right distance and the right angle so that you can use them to full effect. And really, they're one of our most percentage-wise effective scoring techniques. But it's super important that ideally you're first into contact with the hands. That gets you the clearest score. And second, that your first one extends. So if it's stopped short, if it doesn't quite get there, that can be a problem. So finding the angle and the distance to get that full extension on your punch is massive. Now, of course, yes, you can hook, yes, you can uppercut, but they are a little bit more difficult to control on the target, and it's more difficult to find yourself in the correct range for them. So our focus generally in training is making sure that very first contact sets you up for everything else, so that you're connecting not with a straight arm that pushes, but with a solid connection with that first hand, and that opens up the rest of the body. So
for me, just to go on that as well, I think the most important things are the entries and the exits, and to kind of to rob what Neil said. Kind of he mentioned, what was it, Adrian? The quote he gave, that he always wanted to be the first into contact and last out.
Last out, yeah, exactly.
Start and finish, exactly, and that's important in the hands, I think. So once you have that mentality of you're entering contact well and you're exiting the contact well. That's important. Like, it doesn't mean you have to be the last one there throwing, because if you exit well with a shot, they can't hit you, so you're the last one to land. So it's about being clever with that as well. So if you can understand that concept from kicking in half facing, side facing to more full facing to use your second arm, especially your backhand, I think they're the two biggest principles, I think, for maximizing your hands in ITF.
Yeah, and even if you think about it from a completely lay spectator, doesn't know our sport at all, doesn't know the rules, if you're the one who initiates a contact and you're the one who gets out of there scoring on the way, it's easy for them to see as well, who's got the upper hand in that particular exchange. And it makes it very readable. You don't have to be that knowledgeable. And remember, always, we don't always compete at the highest level with the very best of the most experienced referees. Sometimes we're competing wherever it is in your country, our country, with whoever was available and volunteered on the day and gave up their time to have a go at being that corner referee. And so make their job a little bit easier by making the scores super clear,
Yeah, exactly. Visible scores is exactly it. If the one they'll hit the point for that. It's a human judge sport, you know what I mean? It's not like WT where you need the contact on the pad. It's a visual thing. So you got to always think of the visual aspect. Something that we always speak about on Fight Chat Friday, the visual scores.
Definitely. All right, Richie, will we wrap it up there for tonight?
Yeah, fantastic as always, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And as we said, we like interacting with people in the chat. It really gives a bit of context around what we're speaking about, and it's good to get questions and to help people out. So we really, really do enjoy that aspect of it. So thanks for getting involved as always. As we said, make sure and like this video, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Make sure you do subscribe, because we have Master Barada on Friday for Fight Chat Friday. So looking at his highlights, arguably one of the most popular ITF fighters we've ever had. So somebody who's really famous on the ITF scene. So make sure and tune into that one. It's going to be a really good one. And so I guess, we'll see you there. We'll see you on Friday. If not, we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for joining. See you soon.
Good night.